The coffee cup trembled in Vincent Torrino's hand as he sat across from Bumpy Johnson at Wells Restaurant on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. March 15, 1957, 2:47 p.m. Vincent had been Bumpy's right hand for 8 years. Tonight, he would try to end Bumpy's life for $50,000. But what Vincent didn't know, what the Genovese family who hired him didn't know, was that Bumpy Johnson had been 3 moves ahead for the past 2 weeks. To understand how $50,000 could buy the loyalty of a man who'd taken bullets for Bumpy Johnson, you need to understand what desperation looks like when it wears an expensive suit. Vincent Torrino wasn't just Bumpy's enforcer. He was family, the kind of family forged in shared violence, mutual respect, and absolute trust. But that trust was about to be tested in ways neither man could have imagined. Vincent had grown up on 118th Street, raised by a grandmother who cleaned white folks' houses in Manhattan, while Vincent learned Harlem's brutal mathematics. His mother, Maria, had been a seamstress at a garment factory in the garment district until tuberculosis began destroying her lungs in 19. The medical bills were crushing the family, $300 weekly for treatments offering hope but no guarantees. By 1949, at 19, Vincent had survived 2 attempts on his life by Dutch Schultz's remaining crew. That's when Bumpy found him bleeding in an alley behind the Apollo Theater, 3 men standing over him with baseball bats. The moment that defined their relationship wasn't the rescue itself, but what happened afterward. Bumpy didn't just save Vincent's life and walk away. He sat in Harlem Hospital for 6 hours while doctors stitched Vincent's skull. While Vincent drifted in and out of consciousness, Bumpy studied him. Not just his wounds but his character. When Vincent finally came to, fully aware and alert, the first thing he asked wasn't about his injuries or his attackers. "Why did you help me?" Vincent asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because you didn't beg," Bumpy answered. 3 men with bats, and you never once begged for your life. You just kept planning your next move. That's when Bumpy knew he'd found something rare in Harlem's underworld. A man who could think clearly under pressure, calculate odds while bleeding, understand that survival wasn't about strength, but intelligence. But nobody knew Vincent had a weakness that would eventually threaten everything. Bumpy built. For 8 years Vincent had been perfect. He collected debts without unnecessary violence, understanding that fear was a precision tool to be used strategically, not indiscriminately. He'd learned from Bumpy that a man who pays his debts out of respect lasts longer than a man who pays out of terror. He negotiated territorial disputes with intelligence rather than intimidation, recognizing that every deal was an opportunity to build lasting alliances rather than accumulate dangerous enemies. Vincent had killed twice in those 8 years protecting Bumpy's life, both times without hesitation, both times without regret. The first time was in 1951, when two Lucky Luciano soldiers cornered Bumpy outside Small's Paradise. Vincent put 3 precise shots into the first man's chest before the second soldier could clear his weapon. The second killing was more personal. Detective Murphy, who'd been feeding information to Dutch Schultz's remaining crew about Bumpy's movements. Vincent made it look like a robbery gone wrong, and Murphy's betrayal died with him. But what made Vincent invaluable wasn't his willingness to use violence, it was his restraint. In 8 years he'd never killed anyone unnecessarily, never lost his temper in the heat of confrontation, never let personal grudges interfere with sound business decisions. He was Bumpy's perfect lieutenant, the man who could handle any situation with the precise combination of intelligence, diplomacy, and when absolutely necessary, deadly force. Bumpy trusted Vincent with his money, secrets and safety, but trust, Bumpy knew, was a luxury requiring constant verification. The Genovese family had been circling Harlem since they saw millions flowing through numbers rackets, poor folks betting nickels and dimes that could change lives. They saw policy banks processing more cash daily than legitimate businesses saw monthly. They saw after-hours clubs where Harlem's elite made deals keeping the underground economy running. Most importantly, they saw an empire controlled by one man refusing Italian authority. Don Vito Genovese gave the order: eliminate Bumpy Johnson by any means necessary. First attempts were direct and predictable. September 1955, 4 Genovese soldiers drove into Harlem, planning to gun down Bumpy. They never reached 45th Street. Bumpy's network neutralized the threat before it arrived. 2 soldiers ended up in Harlem Hospital, understanding their survival meant never returning north of 110th Street. They tried political pressure, calling favors with commissioners and officials owing Italian families money or silence. The plan: strangle Bumpy's operations through raids, pressure, harassment. But Bumpy's City Hall connections ran deeper. Judges who'd grown up in Harlem protected him. Police captains warned of raids. Politicians understood Bumpy provided more stability than any government program. They tried economic warfare, offering runners and collectors better deals to switch sides, higher percentages, better protection, immediate cash bonuses. A few small operators took the bait initially, but quickly learned working against Bumpy in Harlem was career-ending. Not through violence, but isolation. In a neighborhood where reputation was everything, betraying Bumpy made you untouchable. By early 1957, the Genovese family was desperate. Every approach had failed, every asset neutralized or turned, every advantage proven illusory against Bumpy's Harlem position. Desperate people make dangerous decisions. That's when Fat Tony Salerno had his idea. Corrupt Bumpy's system from inside, find his most trusted man, and turn them. Fat Tony studied Bumpy's organization 3 weeks, seeking weaknesses. Bumpy's operation was remarkably lean. Unlike bosses surrounded by dozens of associates, Bumpy relied on a small core of absolutely loyal lieutenants. These men were harder to approach, corrupt but if you turned one, the damage would be catastrophic. Vincent emerged as the perfect target. Bumpy's closest associate, most trusted enforcer. The man knowing every operational detail. More importantly, Vincent had vulnerabilities, a dying mother whose cancer treatments cost $300 weekly, and a gambling debt approaching $5,000. The gambling was Vincent's secret shame. Every Tuesday, he played poker in Jimmy the Fish's back room on 25th Street. Small stakes recreation had escalated into something darker. Vincent was chasing losses, making bigger bets to win back what he'd lost. By February 1957, he owed nearly $5,000 to men collecting debts with brass knuckles. But Vincent's real vulnerability wasn't debt. It was his mother's condition, and his inability to provide needed care. Daily, he watched her struggle with pain proper treatment could ease. Weekly, bills arrived pushing his family toward ruin. The responsibility weight, combined with hidden gambling losses, was crushing Vincent's spirit. What Vincent didn't understand, his financial struggles made him visible to people specializing in finding and exploiting weaknesses. February 28, 1957, Vincent left his Edgecombe Avenue apartment when a black Cadillac pulled up. Fat Tony had watched Vincent's routine 2 weeks, learning patterns, waiting for perfect contact moment. Vincent was alone, walking to his car, in a spot where they could talk unobserved. Vincent Torrino, right, I heard good things about you. Vincent's hand moved toward his .38. Who's asking? A friend, someone thinking you deserve better than being Bumpy Johnson's attack dog forever. The words hit like a physical blow. Attack dog, is that how the world saw him, after 8 years of loyalty, proving himself worthy of Bumpy's trust? Vincent should have walked away. Reported to contact, immediately. But Fat Tony had done thorough homework. He knew about Vincent's sick mother, cancer treatments, draining savings at $300 weekly. He knew about gambling debt accumulated at underground poker, grown to nearly $5,000 over 6 months of bad luck and desperate attempts winning back losses. Most importantly, he knew about shame eating Vincent alive, shame of being unable to provide for his mother, hiding financial problems from the man trusting him completely. 5 minutes, Fat Tony said. Just hear what I say, don't like it, you walk away. Vincent got in. That decision would haunt him forever. Fat Tony opened a briefcase full of crisp crumpers. 50,000. More than you'll see in 10 years with Bumpy. Vincent calculated quickly. 50,000 would pay mother's treatment 3 years. Eliminate gambling debt immediately. Allow moving his family from Harlem, away from violence and uncertainty. For what? 1 bullet. 1 moment. Bumpy trusts you completely. Wait for the right moment. Make it quick. Disappear. New identities ready. Miami house. Enough caring for your mother forever. And if I refuse? Fat Tony's smile faded. Then your mother dies slowly in that charity hospital while you watch. Then creditors start breaking bones until you pay up. Then you keep working for a marked man, knowing when we get him, associates might disappear too. Vincent left without deciding, but the briefcase haunted him, calculating money, imagining what it could buy, watching his mother struggle daily. What Vincent didn't know, 20 minutes later, Jerome Washington sat in Bumpy's office, reporting every word. Jerome was invisible, a parking attendant the Genovese never noticed, but he'd been Bumpy's eyes 12 years, part of an intelligence network spanning every Harlem corner. Fat Tony made the approach, Jerome said. Vincent got in, stayed 8 minutes, came out troubled. Bumpy studied the report 3 hours. Vincent was family, had saved his life twice, but Italians were in his ear. and desperate men make impossible choices. The smart move: eliminate Vincent immediately. Instead, Bumpy planned something neutralizing the threat, messaging the Genovese, and demonstrating the difference between ruling through fear versus respect. March 10th. Vincent chose. I'm in. 25 now. 25 after. 2 days later. In Riverside Park. Vincent took $25,000 in instructions. March 15th. Wells Restaurant during Bumpy's regular Tuesday meeting. Make it look like robbery. But Bumpy had been planning since Jerome's first report. This would send a message echoing through every East Coast criminal organization. March 15th, 2:47 p.m. Wells Restaurant buzzed with dinner crowd arrivals. Fried chicken and cornbread smells mixed with conversation and laughter. Bumpy sat at his corner table, back to wall, clear view of entrances. He wore his best gray suit. Movements calm despite knowing the man opposite had come to end his life. Vincent sat across trying to look normal while his world collapsed. The .2038 in his jacket seemed to grow heavier each minute. $25,000 cash was hidden in his apartment. Payment for betrayal feeling like poison in his veins. You look nervous, Vincent, Bumpy said quietly. Something troubling you? Vincent's cup rattled against the saucer. Just tired, boss. 8 years loyal service. Watching my back, handling business. Being the brother I never had. The words hit like physical blows. Brother. That's what he'd been. What he was destroying. Vincent's eyes filled with tears. Understanding that Bumpy knew, somehow. Bumpy always knew. Boss. I can explain. No need. Bumpy interrupted gently, voice carrying no anger, only sadness. I know about your mother's cancer, the crushing bills, Jimmy the fish and poker debt you've hidden 6 months, Fat Tony's offer. He paused. And I know you took the money. Vincent's hand moved toward his waistband where the .2038 waited. One shot, then claim robbery. But Bumpy's next words stopped him. Before you do something you'll regret forever. Let me show you something. Bumpy reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, placed it between them next to Vincent's trembling cup. Open it. With shaking fingers, Vincent opened the envelope. Inside, medical bills stamped paid in full in red ink. $10,000 check made out to his mother. A receipt showing Jimmy the fish's debt settled that morning. I took care of everything this morning, Bumpy said quietly. Your mother's in a private Columbia Presbyterian room, getting the best treatment money can buy. Doctors say her chances are good with proper care. Jimmy's been paid off and told to stay away permanently. Your gambling debts are cleared. Your family's safe, Vincent. They always have been. Vincent broke down completely. 8 years loyalty destroyed by 2 weeks fear and desperation. The .238 felt like 1,000 pounds. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you help me before Because I needed to know what kind of man you really were, Bumpy said. Voice gentle but carrying absolute authority. I needed to know if 50,000 could buy something I thought priceless. Whether the man I trusted with my life would choose money over loyalty when pressure became unbearable. Bumpy stood slowly, movements controlled. The Italians think they own you now. Think you're gonna end my life in 3 minutes. Instead, you're walking out, going to the address I'm giving you, delivering a message. He handed Vincent a paper with a Bronx address. Tell Fat Tony that Bumpy Johnson doesn't stay alive trusting people blindly. Tell him I've known about his offer since day one. My network runs deeper than he imagined. Loyalty's stronger than his money. And if he ever tries buying my people again, I won't be this merciful. Vincent looked at the weight in his jacket, then at Bumpy's calm face. The betrayal realization was unbearable, but Bumpy's forgiveness was harder to accept. What happens to me? You disappear, tonight. Take your mother, leave New York. I've arranged a Chicago job managing legitimate trucking. Good pay, clean work, honest money. A chance starting over, becoming the man I always believed you could be. And if I stay, then I assume you're still working for Fat Tony, and I'll treat you accordingly. Vincent understood. Simple choice, redemption or destruction. He pulled the .38 from his jacket, placed it on the table, pushing it toward Bumpy. I'm sorry, God help me, so sorry. I know you are, and you'll never make this mistake again, because you've learned something about yourself today that you can't unlearn. Vincent Torrino walked out of Wells Restaurant at 3:15 p.m., March 15, 1957. He drove straight to Fat Tony's Bronx social club, delivered Bumpy's message, word for word, then disappeared from New York forever. Last anyone heard, he was running a small Detroit trucking company, caring for his mother, living quietly under an assumed name. Fat Tony's response was swift and definitive. Within 48 hours, the Genovese family abandoned Harlem plans. They'd learned what every criminal organization eventually discovered. You couldn't buy loyalty in Bumpy Johnson's neighborhood because loyalty there wasn't for sale. But Vincent Torrino's betrayal's real lesson wasn't about money, power, or loyalty. It was about the difference between ruling through fear versus respect. Fear makes people desperate. Desperate people make unthinkable choices. Respect creates loyalty that can't be bought at any price. Bumpy Johnson understood this distinction better than any man of his era. He could have eliminated Vincent for betrayal. Instead, he saved Vincent's life, paid his debts, gave him a fresh start. Not from weakness, but strength. Because the most powerful message you can send is, I'm so secure in my position, so confident in my authority, that I can afford showing mercy. That Wells Restaurant afternoon became Harlem underworld legend. The story was told and retold, passed down through generations of hustlers and street soldiers. It became more than one man's betrayal and redemption story. It became a lesson about what real power looks like when secure enough to choose forgiveness over vengeance. Vincent Torrino thought 50,000 could buy him out of his problems. Instead, he learned some problems can only be solved by trust, loyalty, and the kind of leader caring more about your family than his reputation. Bumpy Johnson didn't just run Harlem's underworld. He protected it, nurtured it, and when necessary, forgave it. The story of that afternoon spread through Harlem like wildfire. Within hours, every hustler, policy banker, and street soldier knew what had happened at Wells Restaurant. They talked about it in barbershops and pool halls, in after-hours clubs and church basements. The man who tried to betray Bumpy Johnson had walked away alive, forgiven, and given a second chance. But more than that, they understood the deeper message Bumpy had sent. This wasn't just about one betrayal or one act of mercy. It was about the fundamental difference between leading through fear and leading through respect. Any man could rule through violence, intimidation, and the constant threat of death. But it took a special kind of leader to build an organization so secure, so deeply rooted in genuine loyalty, that he could afford to show mercy to his enemies. Years later, when Vincent Torrino was running his trucking company in Detroit, when his mother had recovered from her cancer and lived to see her grandchildren, he would tell the story to his son, not as a tale of crime and betrayal, but as a lesson about character, about the weight of choices, about the kind of man who can transform an enemy into a loyal memory through understanding rather than violence. And in Harlem, long after Bumpy Johnson had passed away, old-timers would still tell the story of the afternoon when the King of Harlem proved that real power doesn't come from the gun in your hand, but from the respect in people's hearts.